Thank you, Ken. We'll whip straight into it when we actually get my presentation up. Yep. Okay, so here to just talk about the Zero Carbon Australia project, which is a plan for going 100% renewable energy, and to do that in a decade, which is a meaningful time period. We've written this project in conjunction with the University of Melbourne's Energy Research Institute, which is a significant base of knowledge on all things energy at the University of Melbourne, where they now actually have a number of zero carbon research fellows who are contributing to this work amongst their work. Basically, Beyond Zero Emissions is a pro bono research organisation, so we get huge amounts of people working in the fossil fuel industry. And to give you a very simple version, you can think of a bunch of young people, bright, smart, who currently work in the fossil fuel industry. They want to work in the 21st century renewable energy industry, but they're now busy writing the plans to create the future that they want to work and live in. So they're getting paid in the ExxonMobil refinery right now, but they want to work in a solar thermal plant. So next one. So the project's got heaps of plans: stationary energy, transport, buildings, land use, industrial processes, and replacing fossil fuel export revenue. We do presentations everywhere. We've got 171 trained presenters across the country, and we do lots of media. Here's a Q&A: Kate Blanchett, Tony Jones, Bob Carr, the Business Council of Australia's Graham Bradley, and Shenrong Ji, the third richest man in China. Here you can see out of that, I've got the front page of the Sydney White Pages on the right there. That'll be nice. And I think it's on doorstops as we speak. IEA has, we've presented to the IEA, they've endorsed it, the Renewable Energy Division. They're the OECD's energy departments. They think it's fantastic and get lots of info off us. Key questions for our presentation is what's the technology? Well, for the Zero Carbon Australia Stationary Energy Plan to go 100% renewable in a decade, we need commercially available, off-the-shelf technology. We need to know that we've got all the materials, the raw commodities, the labour, all our ducks lined up, and we've done all that work. Next. The key technology for Australia is concentrated solar thermal power, but in particular, molten salt power towers. And this is how it works. So you have a smokestack, no smoke coming out of the top, as big as Loy Yang power plant smokestack, so a couple hundred metres high. You've got a sea of mirrors, a field of mirrors surrounding the central tower, and each of those mirrors, 10,000 of them, focusing light individually up to the top of the tower onto the receiver. At the base of the tower is two insulated tanks, a cold salt tank with industrial fertiliser in it, molten salt, and a hot salt tank. The salt moves from the cold tank at 290 degrees cold up the tower and receives the light from the sea of mirrors. Now, the heat up there is the heat you get in a furnace of a coal plant. That's very hot because you're talking 130 square metre mirrors times 10,000, very hot at the top of the tower. Salt drops down in the other side. The industrial fertiliser keeps getting banked in the hot salt tank at 565 degrees. That's the same temperature that a modern coal-fired power plant operates at. Anytime, day or night, don't get pesky. Anytime, day or night, when you need power, water's run past the salt, flashes to steam, and drives a conventional steam turbine. So it's 24-hour solar power. It's solar power around the clock. It's solar power all through the night. These run at 75% capacity factor in Spain, and the ones being built in the US are the same. That's more base load than New South Wales coal plants. In fact, the average for New South Wales coal plants is 63% capacity factor, or 63% hours of the year. This runs 75% of the hours of the year, so take 8,760 hours. This runs 75% of them, which is more than New South Wales coal generators. Next. 130 square metre heliostat, same size as my house, big mirror. Next. A field of them. Next. Just ready to start up in the morning. Next. This is a view from up the tower. That's Pat, Australia's first zero carbon research fellow. He's a chemical engineer, quit the ExxonMobil refinery to come and work for the university as our first zero carbon research fellow. He's not standing in the receiver because he'd vaporised, but it has affected his hair. Next. This is your alternative to a mirror field. Next. And that's the alternative to the central tower. Next. Or you can have that. We'll keep going. This is what the salt looks like, potassium nitrate. You wouldn't want to inject it, but you can handle it and wash your hands. And the US EPA doesn't have a special licence for it because it is industrial fertiliser. So straightforward. Next. That's what a tank looks like, same as what they've got at the oil refinery. And Pat worked there. There's 40 of them at the oil refinery. Next. That's what they look like when they're insulated. Next. I always wanted a solar thermal plant, so someone decided to make me one. Do volunteer at BZE. You can do anything for us. And this volunteer decided to build us a model solar plant. Very big patience. Next. So this is Hemasolar. So it's online and operating. We just submitted an IEEE paper. So a solar thermal researcher from ANU, myself and Pat from the University of Melbourne, we've got that in the Institute for Electrical and Electronics Engineers been accepted about this plant and about storage around the world. This is the benchmark for the future of power in the world, certainly in the Sunbelt regions. Next. So there's 2,500 megawatts being built out to 2013 in Spain. That's $20 billion program out to 2013, and currently they're being built in the Middle East and North Africa. China's just jumping in on it, and I think China didn't do wind 5 years ago, now they're bigger than everybody. Australia has some expertise here, but we'll really lag behind if we don't move soon. Next, there's some of the 60 plants. About over 10 are operating with storage around the clock, and a whole lot of others are coming along weekly, coming online as weeks pass. These are 7.5 megawatt turbines. You get as much wind as you can on the grid as possible, and you use the dispatchability of a solar thermal plant, because those solar thermal plants aren't encumbered with all the emissions control technology and all the things that make coal plants really difficult, nuclear plants really difficult to ramp up and down. So they have a small head of steam, and they can dynamically come in like a gas or a hydro dam and firm up the power. So here we've got 7.5 megawatt wind turbines. In Australia we installed 2 to 3 megawatt turbines. Perhaps Lane will disagree with me, but I think that if you can install 7.5 megawatt wind turbines, you install 1/3 of the turbines as if you're installing 2 megawatt ones, and you've got 1/3 of the community engagement issues. So let's move to paying a 10% premium and install the bigger turbines, Lane and government, okay, or future government. Next, so there's 150,000 megawatts in China. I believe they've upped that target to 230,000. See, I can't keep my thing up to date. Denmark are going 50% wind by 2025, currently on 21%. Sweden have got a 4,000 megawatt wind turbine under construction using these 7.5 megawatt wind turbines. So it's a pretty big wind farm. So our plan is concentrated solar, wind power, upgraded electricity grid, and a demand side energy efficiency program, which is being detailed in our buildings and transport plans, which we're going to release shortly. So we certainly up after your donations and your volunteer contributions there. This is the renewable energy system we could have in 2020 if we chose to do so. So if we sign on the bottom line, if we say we want to get the parent of Leighton Holdings, ACS in Spain, which is the biggest builder of solar thermal plants in the world, and Leighton is the biggest construction company in Australia, if we want to get them to do what they do, and that's build solar thermal plants, they can do that here in Australia because they own Australia's biggest construction company. Worley Parsons is the engineering company for the US competitor of molten salt power towers. So as it happens, Worley Parsons is an Australian company, so they're the experts there. So our biggest engineering company, our biggest construction company have direct links to the companies that build these. And then there's our 23 wind sites, our 12 solar thermal plants connected together by a high voltage DC modern grid. Next. We see it's a big manufacturing and construction job, that's all it is. Next. A factory in Portugal, 1 year to build, can do 1/4 of the wind turbines we'd require. So if we chose to manufacture them in country, then 4 of these factories would do the job. All the solar thermal cost reductions are actually modelled based on the best available data from the US Department of Energy. Just a plug here, the University of Melbourne Energy Institute just did some commissioned work for Garno and showed that official government figures from RET and from AEMO are flawed on cost reduction curves for wind power, solar thermal and solar photovoltaic. You can get that from garnoreview.org.au, it's about 7 down in the list. And that report there by the Melbourne Energy Institute shows that, for instance, the forecast for solar photovoltaic in 2030, solar photovoltaic is cheaper today. Next. So it's fully costed, fully resourced, it's less than 3% of GDP. We're growing the economy in a way that'll allow us to market into the 21st century economy. 5.5 billion people don't have the energy we have, and they're going to want to get this kind of energy. They're only using coal now because they haven't got around to upgrading their grids and getting onto the new stuff. This is what powers the 21st century economy. Next. This is the alternative. It's AGL's plan to get 30,000 megawatts of gas, and they say with a carbon price you get 30,000 megawatts of gas, without a carbon price you get 30,000 megawatts of gas. Next. So it's our choice. We can go properly constructed feed-in tariffs. AGL will hate us because they lose their monopoly on offtake agreements, and so does Origin. That's what it's all about. It's got nothing to do with subsidies. It's to do with them losing some shareholder value, like some company value, because they no longer dictate who has the offtake agreements. So it's gas versus renewables. So you can contribute at beyondzeroemissions.org, or you can donate at beyondzeroemissions.org/baseload. Thank you.